My name is Bert Bos. Welcome to this lecture. Good afternoon. I'm working for w3c, and this is one of a pair of talks. So if you want to know more about w3c, I'm not going to explain that today. There's another lecture on Thursday at the same time where I'll explain more about how w3c works. So I hope you know a little bit about w3c, the consortium that makes standards for the internet, for the web in particular. And I'll show you a bit of what we are working on right now, the new things that are being developed. I saw in the blog of this conference a reference to my name in one of the entries, and the writer of that entry asked himself the question if this talk about the new technologies could be considered hacking. And the writer apparently thought, yes, it could. And in a way, I agree with him. It's hacking, but it's hacking people's minds more than hacking technology. What we do in w3c is we try to create consensus among the technology providers, the people that create the hardware, that create the software, but also the users, the communities of users, trying to get them to agree on something that will benefit everybody and not just a few of them. But often it's hard work. It's sometimes political. It's sometimes finding compromises because we have some long-term goals. We want to improve the web, the way people can use web technology everywhere at any time. But to reach that goal, we often have to invent short-term solutions. We can't create something that will only work in 10 years from now. There are people that rely on it working now or next year. So short-term solutions, and in the back of our mind is still, how do we get via those solutions to a long-term goal? It requires creativity, and I think creativity is what's important also. If you talk about hacking, I think it's problem solving, it's being creative, but not only for yourself, but also creative, enabling other people to be creative in their turn. And w3c works in the public interest, trying to create the web for everybody, but also because it's a consortium, we have members who pay their membership dues. So it's also their interest. It's a balancing act. It's trying to marry those different interests together. So that's for the intro. The goal, the overall goal, you can say, is to have one web only. You want a single web, no matter what device you use. Whether you use it on a phone, on your PC, on a PDA, on a normal phone without a screen. Anywhere, anytime, any device. We want people to be able to use the same information, the same web, and we want authors to be able to provide information for all of those with as little effort as possible. That includes access for people with different cultures, different types of education, different languages, of course. I'm talking in English now, because that's what I do best at talks like this. I can also talk in Dutch if you want. German, you can ask me questions in German. I will probably answer in English. But languages are important, and we want to enable all of those on the web. And that means that technologies, even if they are developed in one country, should be available in all countries. Other differences, of course, are handicaps. People with problems with vision, who are deaf, who can't move their hands correctly. All those kinds of handicaps requires access methods that may be different from the author who used different means to create information. And you have to remember, you have to keep in mind that we are all handicapped at some point in time. Maybe you're driving and you're using the web at the same time. You're using a GPS system, maybe. You can't use your hands at that time, or it's illegal to use your hands. So you're handicapped at one point as well. And of course, everybody's getting older. The population, at least in Europe, is getting older, and everybody is wearing glasses, etc. So you all get to know these handicaps at some point. So it's better to take care of those right from the start. And of course, people may have different preferences as well. You may not like yellow text on a red background. You may want to have that differently. That also should be possible. So I'm talking specifically about mobile access in this talk. It's just one of the examples, but it's one that's very important at the moment. And w3c just started something we call the Mobile Web Initiative, MWI, which is trying to set up guidelines and test suites and checking that content, applications, anywhere, everything is available on mobile phones especially. We cooperate with OMA, the people that created WAP. It's now called OMA, Open Mobile Alliance. We're cooperating with them on standards and guidelines. So one of a few diagrams I'm showing, this is an architecture for adaptation. Because even though we try to have the same content available everywhere, we know that it's not always possible. If you have a big map, 3,000 pixels wide, you won't be able to show that on your mobile phone. Not this year, probably not next year either, and maybe not even 5 years from now, although that remains to be seen. But some adaptation is necessary. So this is the view, adaptation view from the author's side. Content on the left. Hopefully the content is the same for everybody, independent of the device, but maybe it needs some special parts in it that are only available for some users. And with the request for the information, the URL here, URI as we call it now, there comes something that we call the delivery context. Information about the user or about his device that is used in the adaptation process. I'll come back to that later. We have standards for those. And then after the adaptation, the adapted content is sent to the requester. So this is the author's side. Adaptation takes place in this view close to the server side. There's also adaptation that takes place on the author's side, closer to the device. The information comes in here, and inside the user agents, think of a browser or any other software that is reading the information and displaying it for the user. There were preferences, there were adaptation processes going on there also. For example, your own colors, your own screen size, your own fonts, any type of adaptation you might think of that can be done on the client side. So this delivery context that I mentioned, well, this is an example of what it looks like. There are two standards involved actually here. One is CCPP, which is the framework, the general syntax. It's an XML syntax, actually it's even an RDF syntax for those of you who know what RDF is. That gives you the syntax and the actual vocabulary, the keywords, the parameters there are called UAProf, User Agent Profile. CCPP is created by w3c, UAProf is created by OMA. And there's a little example, you probably can't read it in the back of the room, but, well, you don't really have to. Just an example of what you can find in such a device, in a delivery context. There's information about the color depths here, 12 pixels, the screen size, other things, etc. There's actually, let me go back one. It's actually used at the moment, all smartphones use this at the moment to send information about themselves to the server when they request information. Although in practice they don't send the same information with every request, they send a reference to the information, because sending a large file like this with every request is rather inefficient. So actually they send a URL that points to this information. And that's what the server then uses to adapt content to that particular smartphone. So that's something that's already in use. That's not really new. That exists for a while already. This is much newer. DI select, device independence select, is at the moment a working draft in w3c. It's quite stable. I don't expect it to change much anymore. But it's sort of a macro system, like if you program in C, you have the C preprocessor, CPP, or M4 is another macro processor. This is something similar, but it's only for XML. Inside the format you want to adapt, in this case a bit of XHTML, you put expressions, attributes, or elements that come from the DI select vocabulary. They are processed by a preprocessor, and they select which part of the document are actually sent to the client when it's requesting information. In this case, it's not really readable, but that's because it's the XML syntax. Normally you wouldn't do this by hand, but I'll show it to you here. I expect people here are not afraid of XML. This here says, this P here should only be given out when the requester has a width, a screen size of at least 200 pixels, greater than 200 pixels. And in all other cases, this P is left out. It's one of the possible syntaxes for DI select. The fact that it's an XML syntax gives you some limitations. You can only use it for XML. You can only select whole elements. You cannot include or exclude an attribute, for example, or part of an attribute. Only whole elements. But on the other hand, it allows you to use XML tools like a validator, a schema, XSLT processing. So it has benefits and disadvantages. Something similar, but for programs, is DCI, also working draft. I think it's about as stable as the DI select by now. May change a little bit still. It uses the same characteristics, the same parameters that you get from the device, but inside the program. It's an API, it's a library interface. So if you write a program that's executing on a client, on a phone, for example, and that program needs to know information about the device, such as the screen size or the battery level, whether it's connected to a network or not, those things it can ask via a standard interface. And where DI select is used for static content, its adaptation is done one time before the information is displayed on the device. DCI is used for dynamic content. It's for programs. So while you're executing a program on the device, the battery level may change, and then something may pop up saying that the battery is low, or you lost network connectivity, or if you resize the window, if you have a thing with a window on it, it may change the characteristics of what it displays dynamically. But it's using the same parameters about the device as DI select uses. So those two that I showed were done by a working group in w3c called the DI working group, the Device Independence Working Group. This is done by another working group, the CSS working group. You may have used CSS already for styling web pages. The media queries is another working draft in the CSS area. Sorry, it's actually a candidate recommendation. So it's in the testing phase at the moment. It's stable, it's being tested. And that's similar to the DI select, but it's only for selecting style sheets. So it's much simpler. It's also usable either inside CSS or inside XML or HTML. The example that you see here at the top is HTML. You may know that at the top of HTML files you can link to style sheets with a link element, rel equals style sheet. And then you get the possibility to give different style sheets for different media, for example, for the print style sheet, a screen style